Hi, and welcome to day 2 of the Introduction to Mindful Eating course. Today's focus is all about the 5 senses. When was the last time you used all 5 senses when you enjoyed a meal? Today we're going to discover each of the 5 senses and how it's used in mindful eating. Make sure to have a plain cracker or rice cake or some kind of neutral snack on hand because we will be doing a mindful eating exercise at the end of this video. So the first sense that I want to talk about is the sense of taste. And this is probably the most obvious because we all have to taste, or we all get to taste our food when we eat. But when was the last time you truly tasted your food? Have you ever tried to figure out the different herbs and spices that were used in a dish? Or notice how the flavors change as the food dissolves and moves around your mouth? Take note of these questions and reflect on them the next time you have a meal. Taste number 2 is smell. This one is also widely used in the process of eating, but I think that it's undervalued in many situations. Smell plays a very big role in how we taste our food, and actually without our sense of smell, our taste would be reduced by over 50%. The unique thing about the sense of smell is that it's also integrated with our memory. And so we have these different memories related to certain smells. So think about the last time that you had a really delicious meal or a really great event that you went to. And think about the food that was involved during that process. Start over, take 2. The next most obvious sense is the sense of smell. But unfortunately, I feel that this sense is quite undervalued. Smell plays a very big role in how we actually taste our food. And when our sense of smell is gone, like if we have a cold or if we're, congested for whatever reason, the ability for us to actually taste our food is reduced by over 50%. Also, if something smells bad or reminds us of a negative experience, we're less likely to enjoy the food that we're currently consuming. On the other hand, when a food smells really good or reminds us of a very positive experience, we're also more likely to enjoy that meal even more. Think about a meal that made you so happy. Now think about what else was happening around you. Was it a holiday or a fun event spent with friends or family? Or was it just a simple but delicious meal that you got to finally prepare and enjoy on your own? What did that meal smell like? And how did you feel when you start to think about that food? The next sense is the sense of sight. It may not shock you too much, but presentation is surprisingly important when it comes to how we perceive the food we're about to eat. The food's size, color, shape, texture, and overall complexity determine whether or not that food looks appealing. Everyone has different preferences, and this is why it's so important to regularly choose different foods and incorporate them into your daily meals. This process expands your palate and your preferences that can change over time, just like your taste buds. Sense number 4 is sound. Food makes sound when you prepare it, cook it, or even eat it. Based on the texture of the food, it can make a loud crunch or even no sound at all. Sound is also surprisingly important when it comes to the enjoyment of our food, because if we look at a food and it looks like it would be something soft, but when we eat it, it's crunchy, that might change our perception of how good the food actually is. And sense number 5, touch. Touch and sound go hand in hand more often than not. Foods can feel hot or cold, hard or soft, rough or smooth, and even wet or dry. Touch can be felt with your hand, but also, or even an eating utensil, when you put a fork through a carrot versus a banana, the feel of the density of that food is different. But it's also important of how that food feels in your mouth. Once again, with sound, if you're prepared for something, this time, let's say crunchy, and you put it in your mouth to start to chew and it's soft, you might think the food is stale or old or, spoiled because of that texture difference. But also with touch and texture, variety is key. Just like with sight, having a variety of textures in your meal not only make the food more appealing to look at, but also more exciting and interesting to eat because of how it feels in your mouth. So now let's try a mindful eating experience. Take your plain cracker or rice cake or something of a neutral kind of flavor and take a good look at it. Maybe even take some notes if you're interested. So, what does that food look like? What's its shape? Do you see grooves or holes or varying shades of color? Maybe you even see small granules of salt or other flavorings or spices. Now, what does it feel like in your hand? Is it hard? Is it soft? Again, assessing the shape. Next, bring it up to your nose and take a smell. Does it have a smell? And if so, try to describe the smell. Is it sweet? Is it savory? Is it pungent? Now, break a piece of that food off. How did that sound? Was it loud? Was it crisp? Was it crunchy? Did it sound like it was going to be crunchy? Did it have a sound at all? Now, as you bring that food towards your mouth, close your eyes. Without biting the food, simply place a small piece of it in your mouth, close your lips, and just let it sit there and begin to dissolve. Notice the taste. Keep focusing on this taste and notice if it changes as the food begins to dissolve. Once it's finally dissolved, go ahead and take another bite. Notice the sound and texture as you chew. And is the taste any different as you chew compared to just letting it dissolve on your tongue? Once you're finished, go ahead and open your eyes again. So take a note of this mindful eating experience and all the senses that could potentially be involved with eating. And maybe take this into different foods. Chocolate is another really good example because of the complex flavors. But any food that you try or really enjoy or are wanting to experience for the first time, try this mindful eating technique and see how it goes.